We got Cam coming in the Temple of Technology. Welcome to the show.
Boom.
How are you doing?
What's going on?
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much. I realized we were texting to meet up like years ago, and I'm glad that we finally got to make it happen. Could you do like just a quick intro on who you are, what your company does, just set the table for us?
Yeah, awesome. I'm Cameron. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Nominal. So we describe what we do is we're building software for continuous hardware test. So we're all about helping people test and validate their hardware products faster. So I was just listening to you guys talking, like we're very much a like the unsexy, but very, very important, very specific thing, which is helping people move faster.
Can you give me a little bit of like history and progress of the company? I know that there was a big fundraise recently. How big's the company? When did it start? That type of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So we just had our 3-year-old. We just had our third birthday as a company. We're about 55 people.
Cool.
And yeah, I mean, our kind of like the origin story a lot was like we have folks who my former employer Anduril, right? Like we had folks that come from Anduril, from SpaceX, from Applied Intuition, companies like this that have seen everyone building this amazing amazing tech. But so often the problem is actually the software that's just facilitating how people are organizing that data. Doing this. So yeah.
And the recent fundraise? Did you break that?
Yeah, so we announced it a little bit late, but yeah, we did a Series A. We raised 20 million. It was led by General Catalyst. That was a year ago now, which is like God, time's moving quickly. So
Congrats.
yeah.
Well,
So yeah, I mean, what's the next milestone? Is the program of record framework SBIR then program of record? That's kind of like the meme pathway in defense tech. Does that apply here, or do you have a different customer?
It's really interesting. Yeah, we actually think more in terms of like system of record. So what that means for us is like we work with organizations like TRMC. It's one maybe people haven't heard of, but Test Resource Management Center, right? So it's a OSD, Office of Secretary of Defense program, but they govern all of the like test infrastructure for the US. So if you're, if you're Hermes, right, like you have to be working very closely with TRMC about how you're going to like, define what it's like to test and validate a new hypersonic aircraft. For Nominal, like that's our kind of like customer, that's our target. We want to get to the place where they say, hey, everyone should be using Nominal. Like this is the better way to sort of test and collaborate and do data. So for us, that's the end goal.
Yeah.
how hard is hardware? Like it seems like your job is to make building hardware like quite a bit easier if you can test more efficiently. But like, I think people don't understand, like, they see a company raise hundreds of millions of dollars and it doesn't work, or, they struggle, and it's like, you had so much money, you had such a great team, but it's like, I feel like the average person doesn't appreciate just how hard it is to build a single, like that, just the engine of a rocket or a missile or whatever. And
Yeah, it's so true, and I think like we, a lot of the value that we try to like provide for customers is, it's like you're doing so much if you're a hardware company, like you have to, you're doing all the production, manufacturing, iteration, and often these teams like they will hire software engineers, and they have the daily decision of like, do I send those precious, very valuable software engineers to build the software that is like value additive to my software-defined hardware product? If you're Druva at Deterrence, you're like, I want my software engineers building the like robotic, systems to do energetics. I don't necessarily want them building, data analysis and management and kind of like visualization infrastructure, because it's already hard enough. And so our big bet, like the bet we're making is, there's this massive reindustrialization movement. We are solving as a nation incrementally the different bottlenecks, whether it's rare earth materials, it's the supply chain, it's the production manufacturing, it's people actually building these systems. And so this rising tide, like where that condenses often is this very specific vertical slice of it, which is like, I need to use software to test all those things before I field them and deploy them. And so we're making this big bet that like those trends are going to really condense on like the area that Nominal is trying to build in. So
talk about your experience using maybe alternatives to Nominal, or just building basically the product, internally back at Anduril. Like I think a lot of you probably have the benefit where like your competitors to Nominal now are like 40 years old, like very like, super, super clunky, like maybe don't even run on Mac OS.
Yeah, it's so true. Like we think about, the sort of competitors to Nominal are like National Instruments is the massive one, like Emerson, Siemens, like those types of technologies. So they did this massive industrial software land grab, 40 years ago, and they've not been innovated against since. So they've like in this world, like they established best in suite, and so there's huge network effects of like all of the different pieces of software you want for testing and validating a hardware thing. Like it's very annoying as an organization if you have to build the connectors between those. And I grabbed this territory and they've owned it since. What's happened in the last like I don't know 15 years, and saw this at Andrew and other places is the software world solved this problem for software. So continuous delivery, linking testing and operations and observability, like all Datadog, Splunk, Grafana, different pieces of technology like that. So what's been happening in the industry is people have been, trying to basically use those to get rid of the old, NI or Emerson type tools, but those don't work for a variety of reasons. And so with, startups and scale ups, I say we often replace someone trying to use like a Grafana and a MATLAB and maybe some Python scripting analysis kind of holding all together, maybe like Databricks or something on the back end. Pieces of technology that are good, but they're not for this like industrial operations world. And then at the bigger, the big five type customers, like it is a lot of that really, really old software that we're displacing.
Do you even care to go after like the actual primes right now, or are you just happy to just that you have hundreds of newly funded startups that are probably like desperately need your product and like probably like much faster to close?
Yep. No, exactly. I think we're in this like we're basically in this inflection moment where we've been, building and validating the product. And excitingly, we announced the second product. Like I think to win big in this space, like you have to build multiple products across this sort of stack. So we've been doing that with these like startups and scale ups. But now we're moving into these, larger customers now that it works well, and you kind of add zeros to the contracts if they go well. So
yeah, I can imagine if Boeing is signing up for something that what they'd be willing to pay for this software is like a pretty big number. So
no, on that, like I think like a lot of the early conversations around like, hey, you'd be building this with an internal team and paying, engineering headcount to allocate against that. But for these big programs, like the value conversation is actually very interesting because it's like, hey, if I'm, company X and I just want a 100 million, 200 million, $500 million like program, I'm very willing, if Nominal can I'm very willing to pay like half a cent on that dollar or a cent on that dollar for a piece of like test infrastructure that will manage cost, performance, schedule. Like that's the value discussions we're getting into now, which are very exciting. So
can you talk a little bit about dual use? I mean, are we going to see like Ford Motor Company making cars with this? Like how niche are you, and how does that expand over time?
Yeah, I think in like the company building thing, it's like we're trying to be really, really, really good at the thing that we are good at now. And so we're focused a lot on the A&D market, but on the B2B side and the direct to federal side. So very dual use in that nature within companies that are doing aerospace.
Sure.
But then we work with some of these like advanced nuclear companies, building microreactors, like people know fusion as well. So we're planning strategic flags. Some of these robotic, like foundational robotic model companies, like they use Nominal as well. So I think we're kind of planning these flags in these other robotics, transportation, energy as well. So
very cool. Jordy, you have anything else?
I don't have anything else. I'm just extremely bullish because we just got on you and what you're doing. Just because every single person, it seems like we talked to today, like either needs this or their customers need it. So I'm sure you're pretty busy, and I appreciate you taking the time. What are you guys hiring for right now across the whole company? I'm guessing, or
hiring across the whole company. Like for us, it's like folks that understand software but have done hardware is like the sweet spot for us. So a lot of those customer success is like the old type role, but we call it mission operations. But people that want to go to one of these hardware companies and help like deploy the Nominal software suite, like that is it's a very special skill set. But if that's you, if you worked at a hardware company and were the software person there, you know who you are.
Yeah. Do you guys think you benefited from Palantir having so much success with the sort of forward deployed engineered model where
Totally.
there used to be so much pushback against that, but now people are like, oh, it actually works. And I imagine you guys start building Nominal and you have like you sort of have your platform, but then every company has some different implementation of it or different underlying sort of like use case for it. So you do maybe need to send an engineer there for like 4 weeks and just like actually build it out with them.
Yep.
Did they sort of give you guys, were they a catalyst?
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, our co-founder and CTO was an early Palantir employee, worked on Foundry, and like we take a lot of that DNA. I think the key thing is like the ability to then productize those insights is key, right? At scale, you don't want to get too far in that, but like our folks we have them on 6-week rotations essentially, where they'll go do like a customer pump, customer stint, right, and then come back and get back in the main product org. And then it's like, what did you learn? Like, what did you learn from that customer? And like, what are we not thinking about because these 20 engineers are not spending customer time? And I think that's really, really key to kind of closing that loop.
Can you talk a little bit about international expansion? I know there's this big movement towards, Europe is going to nationalize. They're going to want their own national champions. But I have to imagine that if you're deeper in the stack, deeper in the supply chain, that's just less of a priority for those governments. Like it's less of a priority that, steep in the supply chain. Like it's different. The difference between like buying a DJI drone and buying a GoPro that was manufactured in China, like people have different aesthetics around that. But how are you thinking about that?
We're super bullish on international expansion. I think it's a thing that we did for the first time. Like, so we have international customer. It's going very well. And so a European customer. And so I think we're excited to double down on that. And kind of the two, like one of the reasons is this going there and then like deploying the Nominal software suite and sort of seeing like these folks are generally speaking like pretty enamored with the Anduril, the SpaceX way, the Palantir way of doing stuff. And so I actually think like there's even like kind of larger delta in some ways where we can kind of like really wow them with our capability. And so that we're super bullish on that. Australia is one where we're really excited too. Like
that makes sense.
Just leaning into the AUKUS broadly. They're on the aerospace thing, like a lot of interesting, stuff there. And they're very, advanced on CCA collaboration with the US and stuff. And so there's just a lot of like interesting trends there that we can,
Do you think,
it's only a short flight. I'm sure you're over there back and forth every other week.
We've never asked anyone about this on the show, but I'm curious since you're just starting to go through this process. So a lot of the potential of some of these new AI tools is around like translation and real-time translation. And there's kind of a crazy scenario now where like you guys could sell to your product to a Spanish-speaking country, and then you could have one of your engineers like, real time. Is that
like forward deployed engineers who don't speak the native language, but it doesn't matter anymore.
A lot of engineers end up speaking English, but like, is that even a part of the calculus? Like, do you think you can go?
Most engineers don't even speak English, only code.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. No, I love the question. I've never been asked before. But I think it's like this initial, international customer was like a predominantly, conducted business in English, but I think it's like totally enables that. Yeah, I think it like absolutely does make that easier because there is an implementation sort of like phase and that would be a huge So.
Cool. Well, if you ever want to get into testing live stream infrastructure, we live stream 3 hours a day. We're always trying to improve
looking for the
product.
best.
So we'll be the first customer.
We'll be the first customer.
We'll be your design partner on it.
Yes. And you can bring a forward deployed engineer into the studio here.
They'll just sit under the table.
Sit right here. Yeah, exactly.
Under the table.
Hey.
With all the wires here. There's so many wires. It's great having you on.
Awesome.
I have no doubt that next time you raise, come on the show, break it down, or any other reason. It's great to have you.
Yeah, great to have you. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
We'll talk to you soon.